Hi, my name is Cheryl and I am a very late diagnosed autistic person. Can we just take a minute today to talk about sleep? Sleep is one of the most common and most challenging things that we deal with as autistic people. Now, if you happen to have sleep issues, it doesn't necessarily mean you're autistic, but if you're autistic and you don't have sleep issues, just realize that that is extremely rare. As a matter of fact, up to 80% of autistics, children and adults, have sleep issues compared with up to 30% of neurotypical people. What does sleep issues mean? Sleep issues means that you have trouble falling asleep. You have trouble staying asleep, like you wake up a lot throughout the night. You might have nightmares. You might have restless sleep where you're tossing or turning. Maybe you wake up too early. Sleep is just not your friend. And all of that leads to poor health. For example, a lack of sleep can lead to chronic issues like kidney disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, stroke, depression. I'm trying to read my own notes. And it can lead to, obviously, daytime fatigue, which can lead to accidents. So sleep is super important. So does it get better as you get older? No, unfortunately it doesn't, because as children, our parents usually have a pretty structured routine. Usually we have a certain time we have dinner, we take our bath, we go to bed all at certain times. And as we get older, we're not as strict with ourselves. Let's just be honest, we're not. And so what causes the issues in the first place? Well, among probably many other things, one thing is overstimulation. So as you know, I'm sure, as autistic people, we receive a lot more sensory data than neurotypical people do in any given day, which means that pretty much by the end of the day, a lot of times we're in sensory overload. We're experiencing that. And it takes us a little longer to wind down. Also, our brains are wired to problem solve. We're very analytical and we tend to ruminate, which means our brains work in a loop. We think of things over and over. So we think about conversations, we think about stories we've heard, we think about problems that need to be fixed. And what overlaps with that is anxiety. So we ruminate about things that make us anxious, like life in general, maybe our relationships, maybe our jobs, maybe our monetary situation, maybe the future. And a lot of times this can be made worse. I don't know if you're like this, but I used to never be able to sleep as a child all the way through adulthood until about 20 years ago. And I used to physically pick up the alarm clock and look at it and think, oh my gosh, okay, if I can fall asleep right now, I'll get 6 hours of sleep. If I can fall asleep right now, I'll get 5 hours of sleep. That does not help you to sleep. It just puts a lot more pressure on yourself. Another thing is catastrophizing. Okay, we tend to catastrophize, which means we think the worst of things, which most of the time never even happen. For example, oh my God, what if I die? Anybody else do that? What would my children do? How would they respond? Sometimes I think about that and I start crying and nothing has ever even happened. What if my dog dies? What if I lose my job? What if I lose my house? What if I'm homeless? I'm not lying. Now, one of the reasons that we have trouble sleeping that I think is very interesting, and you might too, because nobody can tell us it's all in your head, is that genetically we have a variation in the gene that regulates our circadian rhythm. That's our sleep-wake cycle. That's a scientifically proven fact. So what can we do to help ourselves sleep better? Well, number one is routine. Like I mentioned earlier, we need to have a really good bedtime routine. We also, since we have so many sensory sensitivities, we need to make sure we have just the right pillow, just the right covers that are soft and not too hot, not too cold. We need to have just the right jammies. We need to have the right lighting. For me, it's pitch black, no blinking lights. And sometimes we need white noise. Those are all helpful. We need exercise, daily exercise. Now, you don't want to do this right before you go to bed because that'll wind you up. So it has to be earlier in the day, at least more than 2 hours before you go to sleep. Walking is great. Yoga, surprising. I used to think that was exercise for people who didn't really like to exercise, but yoga, I have found, is amazing. Take a hot shower. Technology, if you like to look at technology before you go to bed, there's certain lighting in that causes us to stay awake. So there are blue glasses that are available, or even an app, like a blue light app. I just recently found out about those. And then lastly, and I'm not pushing this, medication. Now, I started taking a certain medication about 20 years ago, and I had a good night's sleep for probably the first time in my life. It was life-changing. I mean, I used to avoid going on vacation because I knew I couldn't sleep. If I had company coming and they were going to stay overnight, couldn't sleep. If I knew I had a meeting in the morning, couldn't sleep. So it really has been a life-changing thing for me, and it's opened up a whole new world for me. So let me know if, number one, you have sleep issues. What issues have they caused in your life? And especially, please share what you do to help yourself sleep, because your comments can really help everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.